All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Strategic Technology Trends for Your Business. My name is Ashley Limbers, and I'll be your moderator. I'm the marketing coordinator here at Total Computer Solutions, and I'm excited to be hosting this session today. Total Computer Solutions is a full-service provider of IT support and services, including network security, cloud computing, network administration, and managed backup services in Central North Carolina. I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Matt McNees. Matt began his career in business in 2013. Since then, he has worked in several IT sectors. He joined the TCS team to apply his consulting skills to the development and maintenance of business relationships that help strengthen our economic economy. Before I hand the mic over to Matt, I have a few housekeeping items to cover about this presentation and the Zoom platform. First, today's webinar will be available on demand after the live session and will be emailed to you afterwards. Next, we'd love to hear from you during today's presentation. If you have a question for our speaker, please feel free to type them into your question box in the Zoom control panel. We'll be answering questions at the end of the session. If we do not get to your question during today's webinar, we'll be sure to follow up with you afterwards. And last, we'd encourage you to give us feedback on our webinar. You will see a link in your browser when the webinar ends. So without further ado, I'd like to kick things off by welcoming our business consultant, Matt McNees. Matt, over to you.
Matt McNees from Total Computer Solutions here. Thank you for that introduction, Ashley, and thank you for being here for our webinar today. As Ashley said, I work with not just current clients, but new clients as well in understanding how business issues relate to our IT needs. Today, we're going to talk about strategic technology trends, as we say in the title, to weather disruptions. But what we're going to do today is try to identify positively with IT problems as business problems. And what I mean by that is we're going to really focus on things that we can do today. We're going to focus on actions. There may be a few points where fear is created. We talk about cybersecurity and especially cyber insurance and the growing need. But what we really want to have this presentation, this webinar be about are actions you can take away and steps toward weathering 2021, which we are now into. In addition to identifying positively with your IT problems as business problems stemming out of COVID 2020 into COVID 2021 perspective, we want to consider factors that are going to justify and necessitate 2021 IT spends. IT spend is not going away, regardless of what has happened economically in our various business sectors throughout 2020, but we want to be strategic about where that money goes. And there is probably, it's safe to say, a changing set of strategic emphasis since we have just finished 2020 and are now entering our, I don't want to say second COVID year, but our second calendar year with these changes. We also want to practice strategies, of course, that maintain the business productivity, that we have in place, maintain the business continuity that we have in place. So by the end of this, hopefully you would be seeing how you might engage with a kind of business consultation strategy, and how you might meet based on current needs that could involve your current solutions when it comes to IT. This you'll find out throughout the presentation, specifically, as we focus on action items, is the way that we're framing our consulting conversations moving into this year based on what we're seeing across the IT support industry. One example that will be underlined is the growing cyber insurance concerns, and we do have some kind of up-to-date information for you, certainly about all that, particularly cyber insurance, which is growing. So as we begin, I would say that nothing has changed over the last business year, which might get your attention because, as we know, conversely, everything has changed. And what we mean by that is just that we will continue to spend money on IT. We will continue to grow our businesses based on a technological investment, and we'll still have to focus diligently on the return on investment we're getting from our IT spend, from the computerization of our companies. If you have seen previous webinars of ours, you know that I have tried to draw our attention to that 5-year ROI line where you really should be seeing significant returns on your investment based on your IT budget spend. And over that 5-year period is where we really begin to see companies separating themselves within their industry based on their IT spend if done in a strategic way. So when we talk about long-term IT planning, we're really getting to that point of demonstrating the 5-year return on investment. Short-term is more immediate now, and medium-term is more months and up to 1 year. Nothing has changed and everything has changed. With that, I'll offer a kind of overview here. Business plans resulting from COVID-19. We all have business plans that have resulted from COVID-19 that we are now moving into 2021 with. There are top factors that are going to lead our budget growth in 2021 and strategies for maintaining productivity and business continuity. These, as I'm emphasizing, are the 3 main kind of overarching, I'd say, key points to this, to the information that we're presenting. Within these overarching key points, within this overview, you'll find some concrete action items that we'll be reviewing throughout the presentation. Since you still need a business plan that capitalizes on the ROI for the computerization of your company, i.e. your investment in technology, the business plans that came out of our 2020 COVID year are going to reflect the same fundamentals, but they're going to be done in a different way. Since you can't stop your IT budget growth if your business is going to keep growing, we have to understand, and we do have to break it down and be a bit shrewd about identifying top factors maybe going into 2021 more than we would have done going into 2020. And since we can't stop that budget growth again, if you're going to grow your business, we will need strategies aimed at business growth, such as market assessment, certainly IT flexibility, and above all, perhaps we could say, cybersecurity. So let's take a look at our current business goals through the lens of 2020. 75% of businesses plan on long-term IT changes. And decision makers increasingly view tech investments as essential for business productivity. There is no change in this, and I would say, my opinion would be that it's a larger emphasis on technology, and that therefore means technology budgets post-COVID than pre-COVID. I think we can evidence this by the simple fact that so many folks are using technology to do their day-to-day work, and that's something we'll talk about as we get further into this presentation. I will suggest those of you that are thinking about ways to make your IT budget spend reflect positively on your individual employees. I would continue to go back to that image we all have and that we're all experiencing of working through our laptops as the interface to our very company activities now. I'm doing it this moment, and many of you are doing it this very moment as well on this webinar. So we want to get into our key points here and get into some action items, which is really the meat of the presentation. The key point number 1, to repeat, is that there has to be a 2021 IT business plan that results from the 2020 year. Even though everything is the same, everything has changed. So business plans for 2021 result from the 2020 year. If everything is different with us, we're going to have to come up with business strategies that address new and changing concerns. So our first action item is going to be this. It's not a simple quick fix IT action item. What it is to study your market optics. Ensure that your business is versatile enough to adjust to the latest market trends. There is no substitute for individual industry market trend savvy. If you understand that, you can undoubtedly rely on 2021 technology IT investments with much greater effect. Since you're going to have to rely on technology more than ever, the action item here is to know explore particularly what in your industry, what IT is being used in your industry to greater effect for productivity. That's where an IT partner can really help you take off. Notice how this action item, like many you will see, brings together the IT and business side together. If you are going to get someone a successful MSP, a successful IT partner, you're going to have to bring them to your side of the table. We're going to be talking about that later. And notice here in our first action item, you understanding the market optics, your own particular industry, so that you can bring IT technology, budget for that technology to capitalize within your market. Let's move right to the second action item, which relates very closely to this first. And indeed it is to create the conditions to have IT professionals on your side of the table when you need them. Action item number 1 was understanding your market trends. That's going to be a step toward having IT professionals be able to join you on your side of the table. How can we expect responsive IT support if we've not opened these lines of communications? This would be like expecting, instant growth in an airline company without the engine contracts in place. I would assume. I don't mean to give an offhand example there. But action item number 2 is going to be not just building on action item number 1, which are the market trends, but in making sure now we take seriously the notion of lines of communication. We're going to have to be savvy enough to have the IT partners of yours be able to join you with your business challenges. They can be kept simple, they can be understood, but not without our lines of communication being open. Clearly, this is getting us into the human resource issue of trust, working well together, and all of the core company values that you work on to succeed within your industry and succeed in general. Let's keep going now with the third action item. This action item is to figure out how productivity takes place in new ways for your company and to foster that productivity. Let me put it like this. We talk a lot about, and we understand the difference between open and closed minds, from open and closed doors, open and closed minds, to open and closed cultures and societies. I would suggest that somewhere along your scale of open and closed may have even changed throughout 2020. It's going to be important. It's going to be my strong opinion that the more open is your culture, the more you'll be able to foster IT growth through IT strategy. And that's because everything is pointing toward action item number 1, understanding your market, but action item number 2, bringing someone to your side of the table. Now, bringing someone to your side of the table requires openness on your side of the table and in a partner. We're now talking about trust. We're now talking about open decision making. Now, I'm not going so far as to suggest that there aren't, vital company records forever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about creating business relationships and putting them in place where we can bring together both IT and business to solve business issues within your industry. Figuring out how that productivity takes place in new ways is going to allow us to foster productivity. Number 1, I'm sure in everyone's mind as you're hearing me say this is, well, the new way is that, look, Matt, we're talking via video right now. Well, yes, that is one of the new ways. And we will talk about the notion of digital comfort as we get close to the end of our presentation. But these are very real things now. And our ability to work in new ways is going to have everything to do with the productivity that we're able to manage in 2021. So as you consider these 3 introductory action items, your market, getting someone to your side of the table, understanding how to do productivity in new ways. As you think about these 3 introductory action items and consider how you must change to fit in with the basic business continuity of the market that does not change, the basic bottom line business continuity that will not change, that we'll try to manage through 2021. Consider what the top factors might be now in shaping your IT budget. And now this is where we're moving from the basic action items that you will need to get the IT joining with your business goals in place to now the top factors that'll shape your IT business growth, because we're going to have to be shrewd about it. This is 2021, which is not magically totally different from December of 2020. This is 2021. We're in a situation of managing. Top factors now, top IT factors are going to shape your budget growth for your IT spend. Clearly, if I took a poll right now, everyone could probably guess what the next slide is going to say. And that is, of course, as you would have guessed and gotten 100%, cybersecurity. The amount of discussion, the amount of information, the amount of just news that we're receiving on cybersecurity is not going to stop. And it's going to be on top of everyone's list because we must all use our information to continue our business growth. As you see on the slide, all our research is showing that within the next few years, we will continue to see significant growth in the adoption of employee security training tools, anti-ransomware solutions, hardware-based authentication, breach detection systems, cloud workload, security solutions powered through AI, and who knows where AI will go with these particular solutions, on and on and on. The bottom line is we have to use our information to continue business growth. Therefore, securing that information, that soft information, cyber security is going to be number one on our list. With that, a very clear action item that we should have is create, update, implement your cybersecurity plan. Wherever you are on that list, it will be time well spent to create it, to update it, or to further implement it. We can do all three at one time almost, because the creation itself will begin to update and implement. What do I mean by that? You will find first step in creating your cybersecurity plan is to understand the first fact about cybersecurity. And all the really smart people working on cybersecurity will tell you this number one fact is that cybersecurity is a human issue, a cultural issue. It's human beings using the workstations. So by creating a plan, you are already updating and implementing your plan because there's a growing cultural awareness around your company and organization for that plan. When you create, update, and implement your plan, you want to review your plan with staff and partners. Who is at the table? Who's being empowered to provide you with the protection that you need? This is where talking about products will very quickly get you to talking about services. And then getting you to talk about services should lead you to talk about consulting and should lead you to talk about partnership. If you're only talking about products or only talking about services and not talking about consulting and partnerships, you're not going to get to getting someone on the same side of the table with you. How often will you consult with your cybersecurity plan leader? Who will be the plan leader? Who can we bring in as a trusted IT partner? And what cultural or budgetary issues within the company might prevent this? So in creating, updating, and implementing a cybersecurity plan, we're going to stay focused on culture. And it doesn't have to be an entire upsetting cultural shift in the company, but we will need to create enough culture so that IT decisions when it comes to cybersecurity can have a certain amount of buy-in. Of course, the research and the experience shows that buy-in from the top of a company, it creates a lot of advantages for a company in dealing with cybersecurity issues. Hence, action item number 5, bring someone in charge of cybersecurity to the table. We suggest at least a quarterly basis to the big picture company strategic meetings. Begin to strengthen your cybersecurity with greater intentionality. Having the quarterly meetings where your cybersecurity leader or where someone in charge of cybersecurity is there in the strategic meetings begins to strengthen because the intention will be there. The culture, which is going to be a key issue to cybersecurity anytime, will change and follow as we develop our plans with regularity. For example, does everyone in the company have an understanding in general of workstation security? And what's our cybersecurity leader within the company doing to enhance that understanding? Do we have, this is something we're going to talk about later, the proper insurance? Do we even know how to get the proper cybersecurity insurance? Well, even knowing how to get it is changing very rapidly. Without a cybersecurity leader, it's almost like we would show up at the cybersecurity meetings and just start Googling what has changed since our last meeting. So yes, things are changing very quickly. We have to protect our data while also using it for our business growth. We know that. And if you can remind yourselves when you're going through these cybersecurity new necessities of having workstation security protection, of having cybersecurity insurance, et cetera, if you can remind yourself that we're doing this all because we have to protect our data, and our data is what we're using for company growth, then it's all worth it, because our data is by far our most important entity for our company. So, factor number one shaping your IT budget, cybersecurity. Let's look at another factor that's going to shape our 2021 budgets. Again, you can probably guess this one because cloud adoption. Everyone is doing it. Moving to the cloud, using the cloud increasingly. Keeping up with the Joneses on cloud adoption will not slow you down because everything is pointing toward greater and greater cloud adoption. Here are some action items within cloud adoption. Action item within cloud adoption. If you haven't migrated to the cloud, review your plan to migrate to the cloud. Depending on your industry, depending on your stage of IT business development, depending on the computerization of your company is another way to say it, depending on where you are with getting the return on investment in your computerization, you may or may not be at the cloud yet, but depending on your industry, the costs associated will differ. Particularly if there are heavy costs you've been weighing to get to the cloud, review the plan, and I would say in 2021, come close in the first quarter finalizing your plan for when and how you would migrate to the cloud. How is your team using the cloud to its best benefit if you're already there? Certainly want to look into remote cloud uses, and you want to be considering system management with software and workflow. So there you are, you're on the cloud. How are we managing our new cloud capabilities? How are we managing workflow? I would suggest that your cybersecurity leader, your cybersecurity partner, is an excellent person, an excellent individual or entity to be talking about general business workflow. Remember, our cybersecurity is taking care of the data we have to use to work. We're going to the cloud with that data that's creating greater needs for cybersecurity because the cloud is out there. We all read about what can happen on the cloud. Therefore, our workflow is being handled by our ability to secure our information. Another major factor shaping your IT business growth, even in spite of going to the cloud, is still going to be hardware. Many things have moved away from hardware, but nonetheless, the basic unit of our workstation entities are still hardware. The need to upgrade outdated infrastructure is right there with the need and going to help you right there with your need or already usage of the cloud, It's going to be a factor contributing because it's our interface to the cloud. Given that we're seeing our work, and here's where I want to make hardware a real human issue. We're all experiencing it, as I said earlier, literally during this webinar here. Given the human element of our interaction with the machines we're using to interface the cloud now, given that we're seeing our work through a workstation that's increasingly remote, hardware refreshes require a plan. And just having the plan, much like our cybersecurity plan, helps us move forward with our hardware refreshes in this case. How often will you provide new equipment? Is there a plan for this? Does your team know the plan? I think it's great to know the plan about when hardware will be refreshed. Our interaction with our workday is so much about this piece of equipment. I'm reminded of a personal example I can give you of my own. I used to race a bicycle all over the place, and my relationship with that hardware had everything to do with my ability to perform the task. The task isn't the hardware, but the hardware is there to help us get to the larger task. So does everyone, is the team included on understanding hardware? So as an action item, let's review our hardware refresh plan, include our team, talk about how often we'll get it, talk about a plan for this, so why not, where we're limiting our budget and why, and informing everyone. The fourth factor in shaping our IT budget growth for 2021 is going to be a new one for many small and medium-sized businesses in particular as we get into 2021. And it's becoming increasingly necessary. And that is cybersecurity insurance. This is something that we are talking about more and more as IT partners here. This is something that you will have to, quite frankly, talk more and more about to insure your own business, to maintain your own business. Small and medium-sized businesses are at risk, are at a greater risk. Insurance company, and this is a greater risk more than large companies for several reasons, because for large companies, there's less risk of an incident becoming a business survival risk. There's less concentration of cultural access to risk at large companies. So small and medium-sized businesses are at risk. Insurance companies are requiring increasingly stringent practices in place before qualifying for cybersecurity insurance. Here I'm going to refer to, in a moment, a multi-factor authentication attestation example that I have and have seen recently, listing the requirements needed just to qualify for cybersecurity insurance. This is one more thing that is changing rapidly and needs to be a part of your IT budget growth, regardless of business growth as a prerequisite insurance item. Managed service providers like us are becoming increasingly empowered to help meet this growing and vital need. And you will see new entities arising that help us meet these needs. Because if cybersecurity insurance is going to be a requirement for your business, then clearly that information is going to have to become much more quickly to you. So I have here as an example, I'm just peering down at it right now, which is a particular piece of cybersecurity insurance. It's called a multi-factor authentication attestation. So on this attestation, you would need, as a small or medium-sized business, to attest that you have multi-factor authentication for remote network access, multi-factor authentication for privileged administrative access, multi-factor authentication for remote access to email. And this is an insurance form that you have to sign. So if you don't have multi-factor authentication even yet in place, you are now in the position, it's not to create panic, but you're now in the position going into 2021 where there are prerequisite IT budget items that you have to spend in order to meet the needs for cybersecurity insurance. Should you have cybersecurity insurance? The answer is yes. Is it a risk without it? The answer is yes. So our top four there, we brought you a cybersecurity hardware and cybersecurity insurance. We're going to make a transition to your top priorities now, so you can focus again on the bottom line of your market production and overall business profitability. And we're going to talk about now strategies to help you maintain productivity and business continuity. Now that perhaps you can see you need to create the conditions to bring a trusted IT partner to your side of the table, you have to marry that with your own industry business challenges. Now that you can perhaps see some major IT budget lines you want to include in 2020, now we want to talk about maintaining productivity and business continuity. And this year is all about maintaining productivity and business continuity. Strategies that help us maintain productivity and business continuity. Well, it's a secure and viable network environment. You and your team can work at the pace required to grow your business within your market if you have a secure and well-maintained network. Losing the ability to work effectively together on your network is a major factor in shaping your business growth. So maintaining your network health is highly strategic. An action item within maintaining your network health. We suggest reviewing your roadmap for your network in current, future, and long-term segments. When a computerized employee thinks about working for their company, they're thinking about the network they use to do their job. They say that organizations must pivot and adapt. You can't do this without a strong network to pivot and adapt on. So think about the image of a new car riding on a smooth, well-paved road. This would be the sense that we want to give to our remote workforce as they're using our networks to do their day-to-day activities. As we're doing our day-to-day activities, as we're maintaining our network in these workflows, let's communicate our new total experience together. The main line thrust of business development has not changed. The way that we experience the work has changed. So let's figure out what new technologies are essential to maintaining business growth and prioritize those items as a part of your IT budget. Consider this. If an employee has had to work from home, everyone about the company is now, if an employee has to work from home, everything about the company is now experienced through a laptop or cell phone. For many of us, this really is the reality. And so I would suggest asking a question at all levels of your company, to individuals within your company, to teams within your company. And that's, what's the digital comfort of your organization? What issues, what factors are now shaping the way in which you communicate what you used to do in person? Take a weekly all hands on deck meeting, or a daily sales huddle, or a monthly formal get together for your board. That used to be in person. What now are the factors shaping the comfort level of everyone in those meetings? So what led you to the way that you are currently handling these meetings, in this case, happened so fast that we didn't have a plan for it. Now, as we move into managing what happened to us, and 2021 is all about managing what came out of 2020. Now, as we move into managing what happened for us, we would want to begin to ask the questions that we would have asked had we had time, the luxury of planning what happened so quickly that we couldn't plan. I find asking what the digital comfort of your organization is leads to some interesting cultural questions. Now, this digital comfort can also pay off when you get back to some other action items, particularly with your cybersecurity and with general data, with workflow management, with network management. I want to just linger here for a moment in order to think about 2021 and the way we're viewing it as a business year. So perhaps in this, we can reflect a little bit what maybe the sports industry is saying or the entertainment industry is saying. No one is saying, although we heard some New Year's jokes about it a little bit, that 2020 ended and 2021 now is back to normal. No, 2020 happened, and now 2021 is the continuation and management and retooling and structuring for what will happen in 2021, and 2022 already is getting back to more of what we would consider normal. So we're going to, that's the spirit in which we're approaching the consultation. It's maintenance of productivity while still being able to, in some cases, shrewdly make these decisions that we're suggesting about IT budgets. So IT infrastructures must continue to be updated. More and more we'll be moving toward the cloud and supporting a remote workforce. We will all be increasingly streaming our business. The software you use for your industry is strategic. Having a strong network will enable these strategies. Someone has to understand a bit about both IT and business to bring it together effectively. If there is no one at the table that can consult both IT and business, the company will not grow within its industry. And in this way, we consult freely with companies in order to begin to demonstrate how this marriage between IT and business can happen. Based on these key points, based on the action items shared today, and by the way, we do have a resource that will go out to you when we debrief with you with both this webinar. We have a resource that has our action items on it. Based on this, we are suggesting a technology budget strategy consultation that you can use as a framework for capitalizing on your IT budget. During the consultation, you have a strong sense here of how we'll use certain key points and action items to apply to your own industry. And we would look forward to putting these key points and action items to weather disruptions brought on by 2020 as we're maintaining through 2021. Moving into 2021 is a year of this maintenance of the business growth. So we're maintaining, but we're still growing, and beginning to plan long-term growth within your industry. Overall, that would be our technology budget strategy consultation suggestions. So thank you for this. And I know we're going to have the opportunity for questions here. And I think I am first going to turn it over, though, to Ashley. Is that right, Ashley?
Yes, that's correct. Matt, if you can just transition the slide one more time, please.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Thank you for all of that insightful information. Just like Matt said, we're going to go ahead and take some time now for some questions. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, to type those into your control panel. And then after we go through the Q&A, we have a drawing for a $25 Amazon gift card. So stay around for that as well. So we'll wait a minute or two, and then we'll get started on the Q&A. All right, Matt, looks like we have a question. How are companies spending money on IT when the COVID year was so tough?
Yes, very, very good. And that's a great question because the COVID year was incredibly difficult on all of us. And we still have to spend money, indeed, sometimes even more money on IT because we pivoted most prominently to a remote workforce. So all companies that are, so the answer to this is that all companies that are continuing to grow maybe have had good 2020s and will continue to invest in technology. But the other set of companies that are growing, regardless of the 2020 year in terms of bottom line, continue to invest in technology because the 5-year period for technology is where you really get your return on your investment. 1 9-month period doesn't change your 5-year investment growth in technology. And so the situation to be avoided is falling behind in the technological norm within your industry.
Great. It looks like we have one more question. How do I know if I should move to the cloud or purchase new equipment?
That's a good one there. Now, let me be clear about this. If that can get into some highly technological solutions for which we would we would put a lot of analysis into in some cases. But by and large, if the question is, should I move to the cloud? Everything that we're experiencing, researching, and understanding says yes, our technology is moving toward the cloud. So as we said in our webinar and our presentation, if you haven't moved to the cloud yet, you want to begin by reviewing your plan for when and how you're moving to the cloud. If you continue to run into questions within your industry that suggest otherwise, there could be some industry exceptions, and that's where you really want to bring in some highly proficient IT analysis. So we want to be moving toward the cloud. We want to have a plan, and then of course we want the proper IT support to show just exactly how we should if the pace in our industry is different than the norm.
Great. All right, now we'll go ahead and spin our virtual wheel for the $25 gift card. So if you attended this webinar today, your name has been entered into the raffle. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel. All right, so the winner of the gift card for $25 is Brent Robb. So congratulations for that. We will send you an email with the gift card. And Matt, was there anything that you wanted included before we wrap up today?
Oh, just of course, want to thank everyone for your time. Again, we try to keep it focused on the positive. We want there to be strategies that you can take away in order to keep your businesses growing. And that's why we're in business. It's to support businesses. So let's be productive with it. Let's find out the action items that we can maintain, and let's work on growing business together.
Great. Thanks, Matt. And thank you all for being here today. If you have any other questions, please email those to info@tcsusa.com. Give us a call or check out our website. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.